Well, Kennedy, it seems like the Republicans are getting a big JD Vance, should I say couch-sized wake-up call.
You could, you pervert. You got smut on the brain.
Did he or didn't he? Greg says that X is so great now, and I think JD Vance wishes that there was some more policing of content.
Liberal Fox News commentator Jessica Tarlov is presiding over a pretty good week at the Fox Propaganda Network, laying out a very effective case for Vice President Kamala Harris, basking in the renewed caution and uncertainty of her MAGA co-host, and even roasting vice presidential running mate JD Vance. And it's glorious, and we have to talk about it. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, we have several clips to talk about in this video. And again, as a reminder, if I sound strange, I'm recovering from an illness, so please bear with me. So Jessica Tarlov, as we talk about, this is the unofficial fan club of Jessica Tarlov. She has probably the hardest job in mainstream media. She constantly walks into the lion's den. She has to fend off bad faith attacks and insults and heckling from her very dumb four MAGA co-hosts. But now it's actually been a pretty good week for her. Now that Vice President Kamala Harris is the presumptive Democratic nominee, there is a renewed vigor in the Democratic Party and massive fundraising and very good polling as well. And we'll get to all of that. But I want to play this first clip in which she makes a very effective case for Vice President Kamala Harris from a conservative leaning independent perspective when it comes to law enforcement. So we're going to play the clip and unpack it together.
I mean, the proof is in the pudding, as it were, of what the Biden-Harris administration did it. The most delicious flavor of it at all. You know, they have invested more in law enforcement than any other administration in history. Donald Trump actually proposed a 58% cut to the community policing program. They put 3,700 police officers on the street through that program. Another 100,000 that came in through the Safer America plan. The American Rescue Plan had $15 billion in it for crime and policing to make sure that we have safer communities. It's a strong record to run on. The border right now, we were talking about this. Jennifer Griffin was tweeting about the two Sinaloa cartel bosses that were apprehended. She said that it was like catching bin Laden when it comes to the war against fentanyl. That happened under the Biden-Harris administration. Encounters at the border are down 55% since the exact.
So again, she is making a very effective case for people who are curious about the vice president, who may not want to go to Trump, people who are, you know, not progressives or liberals per se, but people who are independents that both sides need to try to court, and who may have, you know, very strong opinions about the southern border and law enforcement that may not traditionally otherwise align with progressive values. What Jessica Tarlov is saying basically to the more reasonable Fox News viewer, if such a thing exists, is that, hey, listen, if you are a centrist, if you're a moderate, if you have right-wing inclinations towards the southern border and law enforcement, there's actually a compelling case for you to vote for the vice president if you don't think or if you are not sold on Donald Trump. Again, it's a pretty effective case to make, at least on paper. She obviously is more progressive than Donald Trump, which is what I like. I wish she were even more progressive than what she is. But what Jessica Tarlov is saying, hey, listen, if you're a Fox News viewer and if you have these traditional right-wing views, there's actually a case to be made for going for Kamala Harris, especially if you're turned off by the overtly authoritarian impulses of Donald Trump. Love that, because that's probably the only argument that a Fox News viewer might otherwise be sympathetic towards. She is also basking, Jessica Tarlov, that is, again, in the renewed caution coming from her MAGA co-host, coming from her right-wing co-host, because there was a high coming from the Republican Party. The momentum was clearly on their side. They were being graded on a curve. Donald Trump was the subject of an assassination attempt, which historically speaking has seen a groundswell of sympathy for President Reagan, President Ford, President Teddy Roosevelt. And none of this really manifested itself in creating a landslide situation for Donald Trump, especially after President Biden announced that he was no longer seeking re-election. I mean, my God, as I've talked about, Donald Trump has now, post-assassination attempt, seen a 4-year high in approval, a 4-year high in popularity, which brought him to, brace yourselves, 40%. That's how unlikable Donald Trump is. And so I think reality is starting to set in for Republicans that this is still an election that they could very much lose. And so I want to play this clip as well, coming from Shannon Bream, who took over Chris Wallace's position, by the way, on Fox News Sunday. She's the closest, I think, to Chris Wallace that they have, but still a Trump supporter, very clearly a conservative, very clearly somebody who is more inclined to give the benefit of the doubt to Republicans. And she is also cautioning MAGA Republicans to, hey, pump the brakes and take this race very seriously. And then at the end of this clip, Jessica Tarlov is going to roast JD Vance, and we'll get into that as well.
But I'm learning new things. But I thought it was interesting that President Obama also said on that call, we're underdogs. So I think he and Carville very much come from this. You got to run like you're losing.
Course.
And, it's funny because those of us who are at the RNC, especially after the assassination attempt and the photo with the flag and everything, every lawmaker I talked to there was like, there's no way he can lose this.
Right.
There's no way Trump can lose. That's when President Biden was still in the race. But they were feeling so overly confident. So when you hear this, caution from inside the party for the Dems, it's Carville and Obama saying, whoa, don't get too crazy. They know there's this honeymoon period. You get a bump off of your convention, whatever your party is.
You should.
So, I mean, it's clearly that the vice president has got the wind at her back. This amazing fundraising, but maybe this is good for the other side of the ticket to have a little bit of wake-up call for the Republicans. Like how you guys were feeling a week ago, this is a different race now for them too.
Well, Kennedy, it seems like the Republicans are getting a big JD Vance, should I say couch-sized wake-up call.
You could, you pervert. You got smut on the brain.
Did he or didn't he?
So I want to get into that last part. We will get into that last part in just a second. The JD Vance couch-sized reality check, and Jessica Tarlov's co-host joking that Jessica's a pervert for bringing it up. We'll get into all of that. But again, I think it's so glorious. It's exquisite to feel a sense of dread coming from Fox News about the election. It's good. It's a good reality check that this election is still very much competitive. And as a Democrat and as a cynic, as somebody who, has had uncertain feelings really about every election, quite frankly, since the 2016 election, I've said before on stream, I've said before in previous videos that I went to bed so confident in November of 2016, thinking there's no way that the American people would elect someone as so palpably stupid and corrupt and manifestly unfit for office as Donald Trump to the nation's most important and powerful office. And I woke up the next morning to the news that that's exactly what they did. And so ever since then, I have been so pessimistic about elections that we've quite frankly won. We won the 2018 midterms. We won the 2020 elections. We won the 2021 Senate runoffs. We won the 2022 midterms effectively, right? We expanded our majority in the Senate. We lost the House by a razor-thin margin. It wasn't the red wave that we expected. We won the 2023 off-year elections in places we had no business otherwise winning. And this election here is a competitive race. And so, I've been feeling and been encouraging my side of the aisle to take all of these things seriously and to not be overconfident. And for several weeks, if not months, we've seen the Republicans kind of take these unearned victory laps and assume a landslide election. It's unlikely to be a landslide election, particularly now that Vice President Harris is the presumptive nominee. She has, a groundswell of fundraising and hundreds of thousands of new volunteers lining up. She has the infrastructure of the Biden-Harris campaign, which was already impressive. And to see that even Fox News is like, hey, guys, we've been overconfident. We need to pump the brakes. It's so good to hear that they're taking this seriously. It's a validation that the Democrats really can win this election if we want to, if we turn up. And that's what I would encourage people to take away from this. Now let's get to the really fun stuff. That last part where Jessica Tarlov, again, slyly mentioned a JD Vance couch-sized wake-up call. What is she talking about? Well, I had no idea until yesterday either. But apparently there was a viral rumor that JD Vance, Donald Trump's vice presidential running mate, had some sort of sectional intercourse with a couch. It is false, reportedly, but it's a viral rumor that has been spreading about JD Vance, and he's being trolled with it by Democrats, by commentators, by Twitter users, by people. So it's a pervading situation. And this is what Rolling Stone says. So what's with this rumor that JD Vance had sex with a couch? The viral allegation that Trump's vice presidential pick wrote about pleasuring himself between two couch cushions is funny, but false. We're not going to get into the sort of details, but you can use your imagination that he reportedly wrote about having, again, some sort of tryst with living room furniture. It is false. Reportedly, it is false. But again, he's being trolled with it nonetheless. So very funny from Jessica Tarlov. Great to see, again, as somebody who is not particularly interested in conservative policy, seeing Jessica Tarlov make an effective case for Vice President Harris to those who might have conservative leanings, right? We're supposed to be the big tent anti-Trump coalition. Yes, I hope Vice President Harris, if she wins the election, continues to govern in a progressive way, the way that that President Biden has. Hopefully she will go even further, right, and be more robustly progressive than even President Biden. But to the extent that we need to win the election, I think it's also great if she's able to make the case that, hey, on these so-called conservative principles that you have, the vice president has a better record than Donald Trump has, because, of course, he's not a conservative. He is a malignant narcissist ideologue and a populist, somebody who just uses the Republican Party simply to aggrandize himself, and he cares nothing about policy or philosophy or things like that. I think that that's important for them to hear as well, because a vote's a vote. Doesn't matter if it's a progressive vote, a liberal vote, or a conservative vote. A vote for the vice president, a vote for the Democrats helps us, and we need to make whatever case we have to make, as long as we can make it in good faith, which she can. Let me know what you think in the comments.